Think I forgot about you? Of course I didn't forget about you. I just got back from traveling, dude. Sick in the hot weather. Dude, check it out. Okay, but here's the thing. This is why I had to make this video. I couldn't leave you guys hanging because there's a few things that are taking shape here that are once again sort of giving us more evidence that the bull case continues to emerge. Here's the first thing I want to show you. Look at this trend line, okay? Trend line, right? Draw from the tippy top from November 2021. Connect that top right here. You see that? You remember this early April top. So you connect those two tops right here with the trend line. And you just let that thing run down here. And look, what do you see? What do you see here? Right? Look at that. You see a trend line breakout. And then you see what looks to be a back test on that trend line, right? And look at the significance of this trend line. I mean, this thing is no joke. It's similar to the almighty trend line that we saw in the stock market. But look how perfectly this thing is aligned on these two tops, the November top and then the April miniature retracement that I was at least convinced, oh, here we go, finally a retracement, here we go. And then it just absolutely failed at that 200-day moving average. But look at the trend line connecting those two tops. And then we look down here and we see we finally have broken out of that trend line. We came back to back test it and didn't even touch it. And now what are we doing? We are consolidating below the 200-week moving average, right? What did I talk about last week? I talked about this basic, simple idea that when price consolidates under an important level of resistance, that usually means that price will break out above that level of resistance, okay? So look what happened to the freaking DXY. That's what happened, dude. It consolidated under the trend line, right? Same kind of deal. You have this trend line here. You have two touches of the trend line, and then what happens? Price consolidates beneath the trend line, and then it breaks above the trend line. So perfect. That played out exactly as everyone should have expected it to. But what's interesting here is that the DXY seems like it's running into some weakness after a trend line breakout. Now, maybe the next step here is that it's going to backtest the trend line and then go higher. Or maybe this is just a very small breakout, also known as a false breakout. We don't know yet. It's interesting, but I do think that it's possible this DXY breakout of the trend line here could actually be a false breakout. I'm saying that because Bitcoin is now consolidating below the 200-week. I'm expecting Bitcoin to break above the 200-week moving average for the first time since literally the summer of 2022. Okay, that will be very significant. And what does this start to look like? What does this whole structure start to look like? It starts to look like a bottom. It starts to look like some weird inverse head and shoulders, right? You see the head down here. You got this weird left shoulder situation, and then you got this weaker right shoulder situation because the sellers could not overwhelm the buyers. So you have a weak right shoulder because the sellers are just like, sorry, man, like we don't even want to sell this thing anymore. We're actually buying it now. And that's why you didn't even make it down to backtest this trend line completely. You're consolidating below this very important moving average. I suspect this is going to be a bullish week for Bitcoin. That is what I suspect. Now, let's just get some corroboration points over with the stock market here. And what do we see? Here's what's interesting. We see some more consolidation in the S&P 500. We see consolidation above this trend line. I did say many times, I think it's very likely that we'll backtest a trend line. But now when I look at the chart here, I'm like, I don't know about that because this literally just looks like a bull flag. That's what that looks like, right? It doesn't look like it really wants to come back to test this trend line. It looks like it's just consolidating up here before making another move to the upside. And just to remind you, what do we think this structure could possibly be right now? This to me looks like it could be a 1, 2, and now you're in a wave 3 here. I'll just do my, the old lines here. Hold on. Just use these real quick. So this is what this looks like, right? 1, 2. This is all wave 3 right here. So you know what happens with wave 3. It's got 5 waves within it and blah, 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 right? So here's the thing. this move right here, this consolidation right here, this could be a wave 2 consolidation before wave 3 of 3, kid. You heard me right. 3 of 3. And that is where a lot of the money is made. Now, remember how many times I talked about this trend line? Remember how it's so obvious that price would backtest the trend line? You got to remember, anytime anything is obvious, that thing doesn't happen. So if everyone is looking for a backtest of the trend line, and that seems like the most obvious thing that price will do, it's unlikely it will happen. And instead, you just get this bull flag consolidation before price takes another leg higher, and that leg higher just happens to be wave 3 of 3. Kid! So, like, literally. And then if you look around at the altcoins, like, let's just look around what's going on. Yeah, good old Filecoin busting out. Look at the moving averages here. Starting to take that bullish configuration. 50-day just about to cross over the 200-day. And what's Filecoin doing? Having a significant breakout all the while. Let's look at good old TRB. You know how many times I've talked about this one? One of my all-time favorites. This one has been super bullish, right? It looks like on TRB, the bottom was literally all the way back here. When was this? This is literally back in May, kid. And TRB it just doesn't want to go back down there. It looks like the bottom is in on TRB. It's hard to say the same thing with Filecoin because Filecoin had a more recent low, right? Back here. This is only back in December of 2022. So it's like that was a more recent low. But certain altcoins, the other one, let's take a look. The other one is Bond. That's the obvious one that has a that has never come back to the bottom, right? So Bond had its bottom in the summer of 2022, June 2022, never came back to the bottom, right? Had a huge monster move off the bottom. And I said many times, is this your wave 1? And now you're doing this massive, ugly wave 2 situation. And then what's next? Wave 3. That's what Bond looks like. That's also kind of what TRB looks like, just a giant wave 1 and then a massive wave 2 consolidation, like an ugly crypto wave 2 consolidation. But this is like still like a bullish kind of formation here if you think about it. This is just like classic accumulation, but the sellers couldn't bring price down even close to the bottom. So it's just like this is a bullish asset. Let's look at just, I don't know, anything else. You know, I love SNX. Another thing, look at the moving averages here. You got another bullish configuration. You got the 50-day just about to cross above the 200-day. All of this is corroboration that the bulls are taking control of this market. The only thing that can shut them down is the DXY following through more to the upside after this trend line breakout. Do I think that's going to happen? I don't necessarily think that's what's going to happen. I don't think that's the next thing that's going to happen because of how many other assets are starting to get those bullish formations. And by the same token, what do we see for the moving averages on the DXY? Bearish configurations, right? You have the 200-day moving average above the 50, right? You see that 200-day above the 50, and now you have the 100-day finally crossing below the 200-day. That is a bearish configuration. The two shorter-term moving averages are below the longer-term moving averages. Now, to be fair, we can't ignore one very basic, simple fact that the 200-week moving average is still below these three shorter-term moving averages. So, you know what I mean? That's the wild card. The wild card is that the DXY is actually still potentially within a very bullish formation here. And if we give our kind of, you know, the sort of the worst case scenario, which would be the most bullish scenario for the DXY here, is that this is all a wave 1, this is a wave 2, and the DXY is about to hit wave 3. That is a possible scenario. That's what you could definitely interpret this is. But you got to ask yourself, what's the fundamental reason why that would happen? And then the answer is, there is no fundamental reason why the dollar would be in a wave 3 right now. There's literally no fundamental reason for that. We've talked about the money printing. We've talked about the fact that the Americans are going even deeper into debt. And if they want to pay off that debt, they want to service that debt, they don't want the currency in which the debt is denominated in to be valuable. The Americans don't want the dollar to go any higher, right? So there's really no fundamental reason why we should expect the dollar to go high. And that's why you got to combine chart technicals with reality. It's not just chart technicals. It's not just reality. You're going to get a better understanding if you combine technicals with reality. And as it pertains to the dollar, the reality is there's not a lot of reasons to expect this dollar's going to go higher. It's just sort of, I don't really see that. I can't make an honest case for the dollar moving higher. So that to me says that if this is in fact a wave 2 in the dollar here, then it's got a long way to fall still. And what do we know about wave 2s? They typically retrace almost, more than 78.6% of the move, usually, right? Wave 2 on an inverse Fibonacci, it can come below this inverse 786. So it's nowhere near that. The dollar has a long way to fall before a significant bounce could come in. And that doesn't even negate the fact that the dollar's in a bullish configuration, because at some point down the road here, these Americans could pull some tricks here and who knows what happens, and the dollar could rise and have another epic bull run, and that would come off of this wave 2. But I don't believe that this wave 2 down is complete. I think the wave 2 down won't be complete until you're coming closer to the 702, 786 inverse areas. So at this point, it really does seem to feel like the bulls are taking control here. Obviously, market is closed today. This is going to be a really interesting week, very pivotal week. I'm excited to see how this consolidation we see in the S&P 500 plays out here, because it's starting to look like a bull flag to me. You see that? You see the bull flag sort of shape going on here, right? You got higher lows, you got the higher high, you've got the consolidation at the higher high. What does that look like to you? It looks like a bullish configuration, dude. All right, so that's all I got for you today. So enjoy this preview of gas station mentality, because that is what 2023 is about. The gas station mentality.
Try some